Ironically enough, I'm getting a sunburn from the skylight in front of me right now. And sunburns are all around what we're talking about today here on Sens Nation Hockey. Thanks for joining us, by the way. And there's a story in The Athletic. I believe it's Joe Smith in the Tampa Bay sector of The Athletic. He did a story on Andrei Vasilevskiy. Right now, no question, I think he is the best goalie in the world. The last 5 years have been insane for Vasilevskiy. Think about his resume. He's now been to 4 of the last 5 Eastern Conference finals. He's been a stud for the Tampa Bay Lightning, 2 Stanley Cup rings. Why couldn't you think of rings when you wanted to there? Anyway, so everything's going very nicely for Vasilevskiy in his career. Tampa in the Eastern Conference final, once again taking on the New York Rangers. And this Athletic story comes up and suggests that, and it wasn't the entirety of the story or anything like that, but it suggested that the Ottawa Senators had a real eye on Vasilevskiy back in 2012. And the theory goes, according to his agent, who's quoted in the article, Vasilevskiy's agent says that Brian Murray, then the GM of the Sens in 2012, was looking for a player meeting with Vasilevskiy and his agent. And unfortunately, Vasilevskiy went to a water park, got a really bad sunburn, as I'm getting right now, and his agent basically called up the Sens and said, hey, can we postpone for 2 or 3 days? Because Andrei's not feeling very good right now. He's got really sunburn. You know, we've all been there. We've had too much sun, dehydrated, all that. And according to his agent, the Sens sounded disappointed and then never called back. And I think we all jump to conclusions based on the word disappointed, don't we? Because it almost sounds, according to the agent, like the Sens decided we might go get Vasilevskiy in the draft, but because he canceled this meeting over something lame as a sunburn, we don't want any part of that guy. That's sort of how the agent made it sound in the Athletic article. And I wanted to jump on and straighten that out. That can't be the reason the Ottawa Senators decided to forego Andrei Vasilevskiy in the first round of the 2012 draft. It just cannot. So they could, yes, when they drafted 15th overall back in 2012, they could easily have taken Vasilevskiy at 15. But they chose instead to take Cody Ceci, who was ripping it up, local kid, ripping it up with the Ottawa 67s on the blue line. They went with him. And I think what really happened here had nothing to do with sunburns or water parks or canceled meetings. It was simply a case of the Ottawa Senators not being that interested in Andrei Vasilevskiy. Of course, we know now in hindsight, the miracle of hindsight, that was a dreadful mistake. But I think that was the long and short of it. I think it's a case of he wasn't high on their list. Yeah, they liked him enough to call for a meeting, but every NHL team, all 32 of them, most of them only have one first-round pick, and generally they'll interview almost everybody in that first round just to make sure that they know all about them. And so I think that's what happened, that he was one of the many first-rounders that the Sens wanted to interview. Was he truly, legitimately going to be the Sens' first-round pick? Probably not. And there are 3 reasons for that. Number one, generally speaking, NHL GMs are a little leery about using first-round draft picks on goaltenders. They take longer to develop, and they're a bigger crapshoot. It's always easier to be right if you take a forward or a defenseman. So again, goalies are harder to evaluate, and they take longer to develop, and so most often teams play it safe. Tampa Bay did not. They decided to get Vasilevskiy at 19. The Sens at 15 decided, okay, we're going with the safer pick of a defenseman. So that's one thing. Just it's a gamble in general to take a goalie in the first round. The second thing is, at the time, Brian Murray had nothing but goalies. He was looking to delete goalies rather than add goalies. That was the 2012-13 season. At that stage, they had Craig Anderson, they had Robin Lehner, and they had acquired Ben Bishop not that long earlier. So, again, Brian Murray had more starting goalies than he knew what to do with. Would he likely go on the gamble of a first-rounder and make it a goaltender when he had so many of them? And the final thing is, and this is a Brian Murray thing, I think, he never was very excited about drafting goaltenders. And then the third thing, and this is a Brian Murray thing, he was never that jacked about drafting Russians. Brian Murray was the general manager of the Ottawa Senators from 2007 to 2016. You want to know how many Russians that he drafted in that time? One. And it was the very first draft that Brian Murray was overseeing. He had only become the GM of the Ottawa Senators 5 days earlier. So it stands to reason he kind of deferred to his scouting staff at that stage of the game, only 5 days in as the GM. And after that, not another one. That guy in 2007, Ruslan Bashkirov, who went on to a total of 0 NHL games. In fact, you look at that entire draft year, that was a tough one. They only had 4 draft picks in 07, and I believe it was Bashkirov was one of them. Jimmy O'Brien was their first round pick that year. You had Ben Blood in that one, and a fourth name. Is it Louis Caparuso? I can't remember exactly the fourth guy, but they only had 4 picks, and none of them really amounted to a whole lot. So, long and short of it is, Brian Murray wasn't big on Russians. So, when you factor in NHL GMs are hesitant to take goalies in the first round, then the fact that Brian Murray didn't need a goalie at that stage of the game, and lastly, he wasn't big on drafting Russian players, I think it is a fun thing to discuss. The whole Sunburned angle, the canceled meeting, maybe the Sens, things are a lot different if he didn't get that sunburn and cancel that meeting. Maybe the Sens would have drafted him at 15th overall. I think there's no way in hell the Sens had any plans of drafting Andrei Vasilevskiy in the first round in 2012. In hindsight, they probably should have, but we all know you can play the hindsight game in pro sports all day long. All right, so that'll do it for today. I want to remind everybody that our website is sensnationhockey.com. If you're enjoying the various content that we're putting out there, we invite you to become a Patreon member, maybe buy yourself a t-shirt, sensnationhockey.com. We shall talk to you next time.